Welcome to today's deep dive. It's Thursday, June 4, 2026. And our mission today is to really unpack the hidden psychological hurdles of starting a new remote job.
Right.
Because, for our source material today, we're looking at this brand new, just incredibly comprehensive master's dissertation by Barry McCabe.
Yeah, from the Dublin City University Business School.
Exactly. And it's titled From Bothering to Reaching Out, How Newcomers Develop Connections in Remote Onboarding. And I mean, we've been doing this remote work experiment for years now,
Oh,
right?
absolutely. Yep.
Years, like the technology works, the video calls connect, we have all the tools, yet we still haven't figured out how to make new hires feel, truly integrated into a company's culture.
No, we really haven't.
So for you listening, we're going to explore why sending just a really simple online message feels so terrifying when you're a new employee, and how our fundamental understanding of confidence in the workplace is just completely flawed.
Yeah, and what's fascinating here is that the mechanical logistics of getting hired remotely, they've essentially been solved.
Right, like IT ships you a laptop.
Exactly. You get your laptop, you get your login credentials, and boom, you have access to the company directory.
You're in the system.
You're in. But having access to a network
Yeah.
is, it's very different from activating that network.
Oh, that's a good way to put it.
Right. Turning the static list of names on a screen into a functional web of relationships is an intensely effortful, really high-friction process.
Yeah.
And it is entirely governed by a system of hidden social cues that, honestly, most organizations don't even realize they're broadcasting.
Okay, let's unpack this by starting at day one. Because I think there's this assumption that everyone logging into a new remote job starts from the exact same baseline, right? Like a clean slate.
Yeah, that's the myth.
But McCabe's research shows the starting line is actually wildly uneven. Like, if you were starting a remote job today, your initial experience is dictated almost entirely by your past.
It is. The disparity in those initial conditions is striking. If you have, say, prior remote work experience, or even just, a significant experience navigating complex corporate transitions in general.
You kind of know the drill.
Right. You bring a mental model with you.
Yeah.
You already understand the cadence of asynchronous communication.
So you don't have to panic if they don't reply in 5 seconds.
Exactly. You know that a delayed response on a chat app doesn't necessarily mean you're being ignored. It might just mean the other person is, grabbing a coffee or in a meeting.
Right.
You have a framework for ambiguity.
Right.
But for newcomers, without that specific background, the lack of a mental model results in just severe cognitive overload.
Yeah. And the research highlights how extreme that overload can actually be. I mean, participant 9 in this study, this was wild to me, experienced such profound shock starting a fully remote role that they actually sought out therapy.
Yeah.
Just to cope with the sheer stress of the transition.
It's intense.
Which, they eventually adapted, and now they actually prefer the flexibility of remote work. But that initial impact was debilitating. And it seems like a massive overreaction until you look at what actually missing from the remote environment.
Right. And what's missing is the continuous stream of informal physical cues that we just subconsciously rely on every single day.
Yeah.
Another individual in the study, participant 5, described the process of finding basic day-to-day information as feeling like fishing.
Fishing, wow.
Yeah, like you're casting a line into a digital void, hoping someone happens to swim by and bite, but you have absolutely no visibility into what is happening beneath the surface.
That is so true, because in a traditional office, you can literally see if the person who manages the shared server is visibly stressed out, right?
Right.
Or if they're just casually chatting by the kitchen.
Yes, you read the room.
Right. But remotely, every single outreach is just a blind guess about someone else's current state of mind.
And that blind guess creates what seems to be the central anxiety of remote onboarding. It's this intense fear of bothering people.
The bothering barrier.
Yes, the bothering barrier.
It's like, I was thinking about this, it's like trying to parallel park a car with no mirrors.
Oh, that's a great analogy.
Because you have absolutely no physical feedback to tell you if you're safely pulling into a conversation or if you're violently crashing into someone's deep focus work sprint.
Exactly. And without those mirrors, your default assumption, basically a defensive mechanism, is to assume you are and annoyance.
Right.
And the word
Very
bothering,
good.
it just saturates the transcripts of this study.
Hmm.
The perceived social risk is enormous to these new hires.
Yeah, I remember participant 14 explicitly discussing their deep fear of quote-unquote wasting their time,
Yes.
specifically when they were contemplating reaching out to senior colleagues.
Right, because sociologists categorize these early workplace relationships as weak ties.
Weak ties, okay.
Yeah, so you share a company logo, but you don't share any history. You have no mutual trust, no personal rapport. So activating a weak tie requires a small leap of faith.
Yeah.
The core problem is that establishing that foundational trust through, a sterile text-based chat window with a complete stranger, it feels inherently dangerous.
It does feel dangerous
Yeah.
because you don't want your very first impression to be negative. Like, you don't want the first time a senior manager sees your name in their inbox to be accompanied by some trivial question about how to format a spreadsheet, right?
Exactly. And this hesitation is a completely rational, protective response to an unpredictable environment. It is not a flaw in the employee's character.
It's just survival mode.
It is. However, the downstream implications are severe. If that fear causes a new hire to delay reaching out, their practical integration stalls.
They just get stuck.
They get stuck. They don't learn the unwritten rules of their role as quickly. They make more mistakes. And that early professional strain, it very quickly snowballs into profound personal loneliness.
Okay, but if this anxiety is so paralyzing, how do these new hires ever actually start messaging people? Because I always assumed, the people who succeeded early on in remote roles were just the extroverts.
Right.
Like the people with naturally bold, outgoing personalities who can just sort of power through the awkwardness of a cold message.
Yeah, and that is one of the most pervasive myths in modern management. And this research actively debunks it.
Wait, really?
Yes, the data indicates that successful early connection is not simply a byproduct of extroversion or having a quote-unquote proactive personality.
Wait, so introverts aren't at an inherent disadvantage here. Are you saying confidence isn't about being bold, it's just about getting a green light from your environment?
That is exactly what I'm saying. Confidence in this context is not a fixed personality trait.
Okay, that's fascinating.
It's a situational readiness. Confidence here is an emergent state that develops iteratively.
Meaning you build it step by step.
Exactly. A new hire does not log on feeling confident. They build that confidence through a series of tiny, low-risk observations and interactions.
Okay.
The study actually utilizes self-determination theory, or SDT, to explain this mechanism.
SDT, right?
Yeah, SDT posits that human motivation requires three basic psychological needs to be met: competence, autonomy, and relatedness.
Okay, so how does that actually play out for someone sitting alone in their home office? Because if I'm new, I definitely do not feel competent yet. I don't even know where the digital bathroom is, so to speak.
Right, and that is exactly why the initial phase is so fragile. In a remote setting, competence isn't about knowing how to do the whole job. It is feeling competent enough to know who to ask or how to formulate the question.
Oh, I see.
And that autonomy means feeling empowered to initiate that contact without needing a manager's explicit permission for every single keystroke.
Yeah.
And relatedness is the perception of social safety. It's believing that the group will accept your outreach rather than reject or mock it.
Oh, that makes total sense. That completely explains why new hires spend so much time just quietly observing company chat channels before ever posting anything themselves.
Exactly.
They're just hunting for clues to satisfy that need for relatedness. Like if they see a veteran employee casually send a funny GIF to a director, and the director reacts with a laughing emoji.
That serves as a green light.
Right. It signals the cultural boundaries of the space.
They are actively deciphering what behavior is legitimate. And when they finally accumulate enough of those green lights to take the plunge and send their first direct message, the response they receive dictates everything that follows.
Ah, okay.
If the veteran employee responds warmly, perhaps adding a bit of personal encouragement, the social risk of the environment just plummets.
Because they feel safer.
Yes. The newcomer's situational confidence surges. The second message they send will no longer feel like a terrifying cold call. It'll feel like continuing an established conversation.
And conversely, if they get a blunt one-word answer, the social risk spikes back up. Their need for relatedness is completely threatened, and they just retreat into silence.
Exactly. The environment completely controls the availability of those green lights.
Okay, here's where it gets really interesting. If confidence is entirely circumstantial, right, and it relies entirely on the environment providing these safety signals, who is responsible for designing that environment? Because the new hire certainly doesn't have the power to do it.
No, they don't. The responsibility falls squarely on the manager.
The manager.
The manager is the single most influential variable in determining whether a remote new hire successfully integrates or spirals into isolation.
See, I've always thought the gold standard for a supportive manager was having an open door policy.
Oh, yeah.
You know, telling a new hire, my door is always open, ping me on Slack anytime you need anything. That sounds incredibly welcoming to me.
It sounds welcoming, but it is fundamentally passive. Yes. It's actually a trap that pushes all of the cognitive load and social risk directly back onto the already overwhelmed newcomer.
Oh man, I never thought about it like that.
Right. The employee still has to agonize over when it is appropriate to knock on that virtual open door and what level of confusion actually constitutes a valid reason to interrupt their boss.
Yeah, like, is this question dumb enough that I shouldn't bother them?
Exactly. So managers must go beyond passive availability. They have to provide explicit legitimation.
Legitimation.
Yes. They must actively normalize the act of seeking help and normalize the feeling of uncertainty itself.
Participant 8 in the study captured this perfectly, I think. They stated that managers, quote, are the gateway to your confidence.
That's a powerful quote.
It really is. The manager essentially has to grant you formal permission to be confused.
They do, and they grant that permission through a specific mechanism called brokerage.
The brokerage. Okay, how does that work?
So simply handing a newcomer a list of names, saying, you know, here are 10 people in different departments you should meet during your first month. That is counterproductive.
Yeah, participant 15 described that exact unstructured scenario as daunting.
Very daunting.
It's like being dropped in the middle of a foreign city and someone just hands you your phone book and says, go make some friends.
Exact.
Compare that to a manager who actively brokers the relationship. It's the difference between having a phone book and having a local tour guide walk you into a neighborhood cafe, personally introduce you to the regulars, and buy the first round of drinks, you know?
Yeah.
The difference in cognitive load is just massive.
It's massive.
Yeah.
Effective managerial brokerage completely removes the burden of initiation.
Yeah.
A brokering manager doesn't just give you a name. They say, you need to speak to Sarah in accounting to understand this process. I have already messaged her to let her know you're joining the team. She is expecting you to reach out today, and she is eager to walk you through it.
Wow, that takes all the pressure off.
And even better, the manager simply pre-schedules the introductory video call for them. By taking that step, the manager completely eliminates the fear of bothering Sarah because the interaction is now officially sanctioned by the organization's hierarchy.
Right. The manager is essentially transferring their own established social capital to the new hire.
Precisely.
But wait, what happens when the manager is simply bad at this?
Well,
Because we all know managers who are perpetually swamped, double booked in meetings all day, who simply forget to play tour guide. We can't just let the entire onboarding experience rest on a single point of failure, can we?
no. And relying solely on individual managerial competence is a massive flaw in organizational design.
Yeah.
This requires us to zoom out to the macro level. The entire infrastructure of the company must be engineered to reduce friction for the newcomer. We have to look at how an organization systematically protects what we can think of as the new hire's social battery.
Social battery. Okay, so how does software or company policy protect a social battery?
It begins with robust asynchronous infrastructure. This includes meticulously updated internal wikis, clearly documented standard operating procedures, and AI-driven search tools that can instantly scan the company's internal databases.
Right. So making sure the mundane administrative tasks are entirely self-serve.
Yes. And the underlying psychology here connects back to conservation of resources theory, or CR.
C-core theory.
CR theory posits that individuals have a finite daily pool of cognitive and emotional energy.
Right, you only have so much juice in the battery for the day.
Exactly. When you are navigating a new environment, that energy drains at an accelerated rate, just processing the novelty of the situation.
Oh, for sure.
So if a newcomer depletes their limited cognitive resources clicking through 14 poorly organized SharePoint folders trying to find a basic HR form, their brain is quite literally capped out.
Right, and the energy they spent fighting the filing system is energy they no longer have available to send a friendly message to a teammate. So by making the boring stuff completely automated and self-serve, we're actually making the human stuff more possible.
Exactly.
Yeah.
If we connect this to the bigger picture, cognitive energy and relational energy, they draw from the exact same biological well.
Wow.
By automating the routine demands and making basic information seamlessly accessible, the organization preserves the newcomer's relational capacity. You are saving their energy for high-value, trust-building interactions that actually require human nuance.
And McCabe's research highlights structural ways companies can force those high-value interactions without spiking the new hire's anxiety, right? The study points to structured forums, specifically detailing a concept called a connection cafe.
Ah, yes. The Connection Cafe is a brilliant architectural solution to the bothering barrier.
Okay, explain that one.
It is a scheduled, mandatory, or at least highly institutionalized 30-minute block where employees across different departments are randomly sorted into small video breakout rooms, and they're given a very simple, low-stakes discussion prompt.
See, my initial reaction to that is total skepticism.
Really?
Yeah. Forced corporate socializing usually makes people cringe. Why does this actually work for a new hire?
Well, it works because the mandatory nature of the event entirely neutralizes the social risk.
Oh.
The newcomer does not have to worry about whether they are interrupting someone's critical workflow because the organization itself has declared that for these specific 30 minutes, this casual conversation is the assigned work.
Right.
It removes the need for the newcomer to initiate contact.
It's sanctioned socializing. You don't need a green light because the company literally built the road.
That is a perfect way to put it.
Oh.
Furthermore, it manufactures shared context.
Okay.
The psychological mechanism at play here is about laying a foundation for future tasks. 3 days later, when that newcomer realizes they actually need a piece of data from the marketing department, they aren't reaching out to a faceless green dot anymore.
Oh, they're reaching out to the person they were just talking to.
Exactly. They're reaching out to the person they were laughing with about their terrible taste in music during Tuesday's Connection Cafe.
Yeah.
The shared context transforms a stressful cold call into a warm, familiar lead.
So, what does this all mean? When we synthesize all of these concepts from McCabe's dissertation, I think if you're preparing to start a remote job, or if you are a leader tasked with integrating a new remote team member, the fundamental shift in perspective is really about how we interpret silence.
Yes, the interpretation of that early hesitation dictates your entire onboarding strategy.
Because when a new remote hire is quiet, when they're not actively pinging people with questions on their second day, it is not a symptom of low motivation.
Not at all.
It's not a lack of drive or a failure of personality. That silence is a highly logical, completely rational defense mechanism against an environment fraught with invisible social risks.
Absolutely.
We can't simply demand that new hires just be confident because, as you said, confidence is an output, not an input.
Right.
We have to architect systems through active managerial brokerage, flawless asynchronous documentation, and structured, low-risk connection forums that purposefully remove the friction from that very first interaction.
Which brings us to one final, deeply provocative point that emerged from the periphery of this research.
Oh, yeah. The external networks.
Right. We have spent all this time dissecting how to build these internal networks.
Right.
But the study uncovered a secondary behavior. When organizations fail to provide that internal support, newcomers don't just stop needing support.
Oh.
They simply seek it elsewhere.
They bypass the company entirely and look outward.
Yes. The data showed that struggling newcomers relied heavily on their external networks, their friends, their spouses, former colleagues, and industry peers, for the emotional support, practical advice, and reassurance they needed to just survive the remote onboarding process.
That's crazy to think about.
It forces a rather uncomfortable question for corporate leaders. If a company's internal onboarding structures are broken, is that company effectively outsourcing the emotional labor of integrating their employees to those employees' spouses and friends?
Wow. Yeah, if the organization doesn't legitimize the newcomer's confusion, the person paying the price is the partner sitting across the dinner table every night, having to talk them through the anxiety of sending a single Slack message.
Exactly. And the darker corollary to that dynamic is what happens to the individuals who do not possess those robust external networks.
Right. What if you don't have that support?
If a newcomer does not have an industry mentor to call or a supportive partner to vent to, and the organization has failed to provide a map of the internal social landscape, that employee is truly flying blind, and they are flying entirely alone.
It just completely blurs the boundary between professional infrastructure and personal support systems. I mean, at the beginning of this deep dive, we talked about the anxiety of staring at a green dot on a screen, agonizing over whether it was safe to say hello. What this research ultimately reveals is that it is the organization's fundamental responsibility to ensure a new hire never has to guess what that green dot means. I really want to leave you to ponder that question about where the emotional labor of your workplace truly falls and who is actually carrying the weight of a broken system. Thank you for joining us for this deep dive.